Hey there. I'm excited to announce this to you today. This is what you've been waiting for in your spiritual quest. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm finally ready to announce it that it's ready to go. It's the Grief to Growth Community Circle. Now, this is a sanctuary where like-minded souls are united in their journey through grief and towards personal transformation. It's more than just a place. It's a beginning. It's a commitment to growth and understanding. Here you're finding not just a community, but you're entering a circle of trust and depth. You're going to engage with interactive coursework. You'll dive into exclusive podcast episodes and partake in discussions that illuminate the path from mourning to empowerment. This is a realm where every question is honored and every individual's journey is validated. To be part of this exclusive circle, visit us at grieftogrowth.com/community or look for the chat icon at the bottom of every page on the main website. Remember that entry is a privilege because I want to ensure that every member is as dedicated and genuine as you are. You must apply to join, but the journey within is worth every step. So go ahead and join us today. Check it out, grieftogrowth.com/community, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Hi there. Welcome to Grief to Growth Podcast. Your host is Brian Smith, spiritual seeker, best-selling author, grief survivor, and life coach. Brian believes that the worst tragedies of life provide the greatest opportunity for growth. Brian says he was planted, not buried, and he is here to help you grow where you've been planted by the difficulties in life. In each episode, Brian and his guests will share what has helped them to survive and thrive. It is his sincere hope this episode helps you today.
All right, hey everybody, this is Brian. I'm back with another episode of Grief to Growth. I've got with me today my friend Carolyn Clapper, and Carolyn is a world-class medium. I know a lot of mediums, and Carolyn is definitely one of the best, if not the best medium that I know. We've been friends for, I guess, about 3 or 4 years. We met through Facebook. I'm not sure how exactly we met. I'm going to read a short introduction, and I'm going to have a conversation with Carolyn. But growing up, Carolyn saw spirits and she had psychic experiences. But it wasn't until her NDE with meningitis in 2011 that she experienced a transition into becoming a full-blown medium. Her abilities were magnified by 100 times or more, and she had this boundless ability to connect to the spirit world. So, Carolyn, I don't want to read much more of your bio. I'm just going to let you tell your story. So we'll just go ahead, and I want to say hi to Carolyn Clapper.
Hey,
Carolyn.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm glad we're finally
able to
keep
our connection.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to do this. Carolyn she messes up electronics. So it took us about, half an hour to get connected with Zoom, and then the phone call dropped. So we're going to keep pressing forward and hope Spirit will cooperate with us here.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just like, now I'm just laughing. I can't even, it's hard to take seriously after we've been playing around with the computer for so long now. So hopefully we'll stay connected, but thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, we've been trying to do this for a while. Our schedules haven't worked out, but things work out, I guess, the way they're supposed to. So we'll see how it goes. But what I want to do is, I want to, first of all, tell me like what your childhood was like, what was like experiencing spirit the way that you did, and then what happened on 11/11/11.
Okay, well, how long do you have? If you want me to go over my childhood, and are you a psychologist? Because this could be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, I guess I should have framed that question better. How was your experience with spirit when you were a child?
Yeah. So I've always seen spirit since I can remember. It was just a matter. So I had a very weird childhood. I don't know if anybody has had a normal childhood, honestly. I've spoken to so many people, but mine was weird, equally as weird as the weirdest childhood that you've ever heard of, probably. So I was born in the home that I was raised in for the first 17 years of my life. I was born upstairs in my mom's bedroom. And there's relevance to that, I think. Okay, so I was born in the house, and it was a very active house. There was so much weird activity in that house since I can remember. And everyone in the house would experience it, from light bulbs like blowing out and then being replaced by old light bulbs, like with a different wattage, but they would have, thick coats of dust and debris on them. So it was like, obviously with no fingerprints. So it couldn't have been trickery of like one of the kids or whatever, you know what I mean? We'd have all this like weird activity that people would probably be like, yeah, that's poltergeist type stuff. But really it wasn't scary because it was kind of alarming, but it wasn't like threatening, you know? So my sisters, there was 3 of us, and my sisters experienced some things, and my mom would always, you know, she was a single parent raising us, and she would always kind of like downplay it, like, oh, it's fine, you know, like, because we'd be scared. We'd be like, oh my God, Mom, oh my God. So this house that we grew up in had a lot of activity. And when I was about 8 years old, I started seeing who was behind the activity, which is unique to everybody else in the house. Like everyone would experience things. The cats would chase like invisible mice, and it was just kind of a joke. Like we'd make fun of it and just like joke around about it. You know, toys would go off on their own. Bells would turn their heads. Yeah, really creepy stuff for kids. But anyways, we were a little bit freaked out, but we would just like chalk it up to, okay, you know, spirits exist everywhere and they're not going to harm us. Our mom told us that they were fine, that they love us. If they didn't love us, that they would hurt us.
Okay.
I guess that we're loved.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I was 8 years old, I was sleeping in my mom's bed. I was kind of a scaredy cat, so I'd run in to my mom's room when I felt something weird. And I would jump in bed with her. And one night I woke up and I looked out into the hallway and there was a little girl standing there just staring back at me. And I'm like, I froze. And it was kind of scary because it was unexpected. And I was looking at her and she looked at me and she looked equally as surprised to see me looking back at her as I was. It was like we were both having the same response, which was really weird. And she was dressed in these old-timey clothes. We were probably around the same age. Anyway, she looked at me and saw me looking back at her, turned around and rushed back the other way down the hallway. Right. And so I tried to scream and I couldn't. So that was scary. I felt like I was screaming like for my mom to wake up and nothing came out.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a story I've never told anybody. So, it's just interesting. I mean, never told anyone in an interview, I should say. But I would tell my friends as you know, all these stories when I was a kid, I always had the best ghost stories because they were real.
Yeah.
They were happening. And everybody would like try and top mine and it just was never happening. So this little girl existed in my home, but I couldn't communicate with her. I was just actually afraid. I was really scared.
Sure,
I think I slept downstairs underneath the table for like 3 days following that event. And then there was another event when I was, I don't know, 15 or 16. I got really sick and I had I think I had mono at the time. I was so sick. And I kept wanting a glass of water and I was so dehydrated and I kept wanting to get up and I was envisioning it, but I couldn't get out of bed. And I was kind of half in and out of consciousness because I was so sick. I kept passing out, like falling asleep and then waking up and falling asleep. And I saw 3 women standing in my room and they looked like school teachers. They had their hair up in buns and they were like dressed in these old timey clothes again. And, you know, I'm like, they were talking and I'm like, shut up. I literally was laying there going, can you please stop talking? I'm sick. Like, this is so rude. Like you're in my room and you're talking and I'm trying to get some sleep and I'm really sick. And they looked at me and then just kept talking. I couldn't understand them. Yeah. And then that's all I remember from that. That's all I remember from that time. But there are events like this growing up, right? Where I guess that time I said it out loud to them, but I didn't get anything back. You know what I mean? Anyways, pan forward years later, I moved from that house, you know, to a different city. And I ended up coming back to that home later when I was in my mid-20s. And I rented the home with my then husband. Okay. And events started happening again. So activity just started up again, like full blown, like lights would turn on their own. we actually had so much activity that we would make it a game. Like we would come home and we'd guess, like I don't know, like we'd make it a game whether or not the basement light would be turned on when we got home. And whoever won, whatever. You know what I mean? It was like really stupid. And it was frequently on, and it was a real hard light to switch on. So it wasn't something, it's one of the ones you got to jam up, you know.
Right.
It's the house was built in the 1800s. It was old. It was kind of creepy in the basement. You don't want to go down there.
So it's like an episode of like The Haunting of Bly House or something.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, something I want to tell you about today. My podcast platform, Buzzsprout, has recently made it easier for me to allow you to support me financially. Go to www.grieftogrowth.com/subscribe. That's grief, the number 2, growth.com/subscribe. And once you're there, you can sign up to support me financially. Now, you can do it for as little as $3 a month, or of course, as much as you'd like. If you do that, you'll get access to bonus episodes, and you'll see those in the regular feed. They'll have a lock on them. But when you become a subscriber, you'll actually get access to your own private feed, and you'll be able to listen to the regular podcast along with the bonus podcast for the subscribers. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sharing the podcast. And I want to thank those of you who support me financially. Have a great day, and on to the episode.
I mean, for real, this house is like wicked active. It's even gotten worse now. I've talked to the woman who owns it now, and it's like pretty awful. Sorry, I'm like going crazy. I had to straighten out my leg. Anyways, so long story shorter, I grew up in this house. I was able to see things. Went back to the house. I never had any confirmation of it until I was back there as an adult in my 20s. I started watching over a woman that lived 2 doors down from that house my entire life. And I became her emergency contact person, right? And so we would go, you know, she'd call me for everything. Like her fridge, she'd wash her fridge and she had to get it back together and she couldn't. So I'd go over there, right? Yeah. And she was a real interesting woman, and we'd get to talking. And one day we got to talking about the haunted houses in the Racine area, right, where I grew up. And I tell her my stories, and she confirms she knew every person that I saw. She's like, the women that you saw, those were the daughters of the man that built the house. And you're describing them verbatim. She's a very elderly woman. And so she knew the entire history and the people who lived there. Okay. So that was my first real confirmation, which felt really, really good and kind of freaked me out at the same time.
Yeah.
I moved from that house and activity stopped for me. There was nothing. I actually missed it. I thought, you know, it was so quiet when I moved into a new home. There was nothing there.
So the activity for you when you were growing up was always connected to the house?
Always.
Okay.
Well, with the exception of like 2 times, but I'll skip that for now because I'm getting too long-winded. Okay. But yeah, pretty much always it was connected to that home.
Okay.
Which I thought wasn't that weird because I was born in the home. So if there was spirits there, you would think, well, maybe they have like a connection to me because I arrived in that home, you know, and they were there. Okay. So that's my connection to my childhood home. Moving forward, there's a gap of time where I didn't see anything for like 10 years, maybe not quite, but, you know, just under 10 years. And then I came down with meningitis in 2011. And that's where everything took a turn for me. So I was living in, you know, about 45 minutes from where I had used to live. I was living in Wauwatosa. And I was going through a divorce at the time. So it was just me and my son there. And he was very young. He was like 6 years old. And I had gotten frequent migraines. I'm somebody who's had migraines since I can remember. They're crippling. And I thought I was just having a migraine. I took my Imitrex and I laid down and I thought, you know, this will clear up. But it didn't. And I didn't get back up again. I laid in my bed and I was in and out of consciousness. I don't know how long I was in and out of consciousness for. My son was running around and he would come, like it would be light out and then it was dark. He'd come to my bedroom and he'd have little presents for me, like little gifts, like cars. He'd take like lollipops and try to take my temperature. And I was just really sick. I think my temp hit like over, you know, 103 the last time I checked it. And oddly, this kind of saved my life, but I had taken a picture of my temperature at one point and I posted it on Facebook. I have no idea why. Of course, like everybody posts everything on Facebook. I'm like, look at my temp. It's crazy high, you know, like, I don't know why I do that. And a girlfriend of mine whom I hadn't spoke to in years reached out to me over the phone by text. And she's like, are you okay? Well, I couldn't speak at this point. I don't know why. At this point, I didn't know why I couldn't get a word out, but I couldn't speak. And I could text, so I wrote help. And she texted me back, and she's like, "I'll be right there." And then she fell asleep.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, damn it, almost. So then an hour later, she texts me again, and I wake up to my phone, and I can't move. Like I just felt like fused. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I tried to speak to my son and I couldn't get a word out. And I texted her again, help, and I passed out again. Well, when I was in this state, it was like, it was just such a strange state that I was in. I was so sick. I was so sick that I kind of lost track of time, lost track of reality. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I started seeing my mom, who was crossed over. She had just crossed over like a year prior, 2 years prior, excuse me. And she shows up next to my bed, right? And I can sense her and I can feel her and I can see her in my mind's eye. And she starts playing this memory back in my head. As I said, she was a single mom as we were growing up, so she would have to go to work and we'd get left home sick. Like if we were sick, we just, here's some popsicles, get better, Yeah. Well, I start hearing her say, in my head, I start seeing this scene play out from when I was about, 7, 8 years old, and I was sick at home. And she's looking at me and she's saying, Carolyn, sit up and touch your chin to your neck. And so I'm just seeing this replay in my head over and over. She used to do this. If we had a sore throat when we were little, she would do the chin check. So she'd have us sit up and touch our chin to our neck. And every time we didn't know what she was doing, but she'd tell us to do it. And then she'd kiss us and she'd be like, okay, you're fine. And she'd go to work. And she'd be like, call me if you need anything. Okay. And we never, ever, I never knew in my whole life why she did this. I'd forgotten all about it. So she's playing this like memory through my head 3-4 times in my head, just over and over and over. And finally I hear her voice clear as day and she says, Carolyn, sit up and touch your chin to your neck. And it registered. I'm like, okay. So I sit up, right? And I try and I couldn't. It went like maybe this far and I started projectile vomiting, which is just disgusting. But I couldn't, my neck was fused, and I couldn't. And then my girlfriend shows up and my son lets her in. I try talking to her and she says, I can't understand a word you're saying. It was coming out like alphabet soup. Couldn't understand a word I was saying. I pass out and 8 hours later, I wake up in the ER. Like I can't remember anything like from then until the ER. And I can hear the doctors speaking to my ex who's picking my son up. And they're like, look, we don't know what's happening to her. We can't get her temperature under control. I can hear them. Right. And I try to speak. And every time I try to speak, I'm dry heaving. And finally I get one word out. And it's because my mom told me. She goes, meningitis. And I said, meningitis. And thank God there was a nurse there who listened. She came up to me and she goes, what did you just say? And she got real close. I said it one more time. And she's like, we didn't even think about that, So she ran and got the doctor and they tapped my spine. They put me in isolation because they thought that I could have something like MRSA or something. But the meningitis test came back positive. So I had 2 strains of meningitis. And I had the bacterial meningitis, and they weren't sure if I had viral also. And it was just crazy. It was a crazy week. I feel like I'm just talking and talking. Sorry.
That's what you're here for.
So I'm laying in the hospital bed, right? And it was just mishap after mishap when I was at the hospital. And bless their hearts, like they were trying so hard. They were helping me. They were giving me antibiotics. mega intravenous antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a heart stent in, and oh my God, my heart stent, I ended up telling them like my heart stent was in wrong. And they're like, well, how would you know? And I'm like, I just know, And there was a few times where my heart would stop because they put the heart stent in too far, and they had to give me an ultrasound, pull back out. I was teetering on death's door for the entire time. My heartbeat was down to like 30 beats a minute, 31 beats a minute. It was constantly going off, the alarm in the hallway. And the only time that my heart would raise is when my son would come and they'd let him lay next to me. And then my heart rate would go up by double. It would go up to like 61 beats a minute. So the power of love is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible with your children. I'm telling you, and you know better than anybody how incredibly connected we are to our children, like their spirit, their energy. It's just like them being biased it's just pure love.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to credit my son. I really think that he saved my life in a lot of ways. But when I was in and out of consciousness and kind of in between two worlds, when I had meningitis, I started to see myself out of body. So it's like I was laying in the hospital bed, yet I was seeing myself standing up in front of me and seeing my own butt. Like I was in a hospital gown, right? So I'm like seeing my own ass. And it wasn't very pretty. It was really disappointing. But as I'm standing there, I'm seeing myself from behind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I would all of a sudden go into that body, right? And I'd be seeing from my eyes, but in a different space. And I was welcomed by a committee, is the best way I can describe it to you. There was a committee of people there, about 30 people, all dressed in white. They didn't have wings or halos or anything. They looked like, I don't know. They looked like they were, I don't know. They looked like they were in like linen clothing or something, it was very just clean and dark almost, and very calm, and there was one woman whom I was very focused on, and she was the center person, and she was the speaker. She had this silver hair, and it was short, and she was just, she was speaking. She was like looking at me, and they were talking, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. And then she let me speak, and I asked her if they would please let me stay for my son,
Stay
because
here.
I was all that he really had. Stay here in this life, because I wanted to stay longer. And I wasn't like emotional or anything. It was just very a matter of fact. And and she looked next to her and she spoke to somebody, looked back at me and spoke without her mouth, just like through her mind, like telepathy at me. And she said, yes, if you do this work for us. And I said, yes, just a matter of fact. I'm like, yep. Okay. I didn't even know what she was talking about. I'm like, yep, sign me up.
Okay.
If I can stay for my son, sign me up. Okay. Whatever you want me to do. And they all went together into this glowing white light. They just all like lost their form and went together into like this orb-like light and went through my feet, up through my core and through my head. And I was completely healed on 11/11/11. I was 100% healed and discharged from Frederick Hospital. And I have the records. I'm writing a book right now because I'm like so evidential based that it's like, I'm like, here, I'll put it all out there for everybody so they don't question me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know how people are. So like, I was released on this day. And I really didn't, it was like, it didn't register what happened to me until later. You know what I mean? Because I was like in it and I was going through it. And so it just doesn't register. It doesn't sink in until later. But like when the doctors came in and they were like, how are you speaking to us? They had the lights on and the neurologist and stuff was there. And he's like, look at my light, and follow my light and, repeat after me and what day is it? And, all of this stuff. And they're speaking to me and I'm completely clear. the neurologist was like, you're an anomaly. He's like, okay. He goes, I heard that your mom saved your life. He came in, cause he's sitting here with me and he goes, I heard your mom saved your life, that she told you that you had meningitis. I want to thank her.
So you had told someone
where
this
is
story.
she? Well, the nurses, because they knew, because I said, my mom, they were like, how did you know you had meningitis? And I was like, well, my mom told me. Right. And I'm like in and out, but I'm like, my mom told me.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I hadn't told him the whole story because, so he sits down and he's like, where's your mom? I want to thank her. Like, she's so smart, how would she know this? Right. And I just looked at him and I'm like, go ahead, go ahead and thank her. And he's like, what do you mean? And he looks at me all, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I'm sure she's in here. I said, she's crossed over. And that just kind of, he's like, he goes, okay. Yeah. He goes, it's like he understood, he was a doctor and he's like, well, we get this kind of stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
We've seen it all. We've heard it all, and he's like, it's incredible,
So at this point you're healed. And so when did your mediumship open up? What was the first evidence of your mediumship starting to open up after that?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm really excited to tell you about my latest ebook. It's 4 lessons that you can learn from the near-death experience without going through all the trouble of dying to learn them. I've been studying NDEs for several years now. I am completely convinced that not only are they 100% real, but that there's some very universal wisdom that we can get from the near-death experience. And I've distilled that down in this book into 4 short lessons. And I've also given you all the reasons why I believe that NDEs are absolutely real. So go to www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons to pick it up for free. www.growth.com/NDE lessons. I hope you enjoy it.
So in the hospital, after I had started to get better, I was getting a little better before they went through me. So I was having, I was able to speak a little more. I was on drugs that helped the pain and things like that. Okay. And, at that point, when I was crossing in and out, I saw people's family members and loved ones in the hospital. So I don't know, nurses that were working on me and friends that people that were strangers to me that were checking in on me, friends of friends that were calling the hospital, being supportive, which was so sweet of them. I'd be like, oh, I got your mom and dad here. And I didn't know them, and then they'd be crying and oh my God, well, how would you know this? And I'm like, I don't know. They're standing right in front of me. They're chilling with my mom and dad. They got a glass of wine and they're, they're telling me what's up in your life, And, I thought that was completely normal when I was in the hospital because I thought, well, I'm dying. Whatever. I'm dying. So everybody sees people who are crossed over when they're dying. I'm not that special. There's nothing this is just a thing, right? I didn't think anything of it. I'm real fluid and free flowing. So nothing really jogs me that much. So even then I was like, well, whatever. It's just, they're here, whatever. Just accept it and deal with it. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to be with your little homies over there pretty soon and we're going to be kicking it together. And that's just how it is.
We'll get back to Grief to Growth in just a few seconds. Did you know that Brian is an author and a life coach? If you're grieving or know someone who is grieving, his book, Grief to Growth, is a best-selling, easy-to-read book that might help you or someone you know. People work with Brian as a life coach to break through barriers and live their best lives. You can find out more about Brian and what he offers at www.grieftogrowth.com, www.growth.com, or text GROWTH, GROWTH, to 31996. If you'd like to support this podcast, visit www.patreon.com/grieftogrowth, www.patreon.com/GRIEF, GROWTH, to make a financial contribution. And now back to Grief to Growth.
I didn't know I'd survive,
Yeah.
But moving forward, I had gone home following this, and I had to continue IV antibiotics for about a week. And I finally got to take a bath. I was so happy, you guys. It was like I was so gross at that point. It was really nasty. Anyway, so I finally got to take a bath. And so I went in to take my bath, and it was like the best feeling ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I draw my bath, and I'm sitting in there, and I've got my phone next to me. Don't ask me. I don't know why. So my phone's sitting on the floor, and my phone rings. And this is the first bath I've had in over 2 weeks. It's so gross, yuck. So you'd think that I wouldn't answer my phone, but I did. Mm-hmm. And it was a girlfriend whom I haven't talked to, again, another friend that I hadn't heard from in years. And I pick up the phone, and she was in distress. She was in a really bad place. And I'm in the tub in a really good place. I was thinking, this is so relaxing. And I didn't really want to get into a heavy conversation with her, to be honest, but I've helped her before. She's somebody who's tried to take her life before, and I had kind of saved her life a couple of times. And so I didn't want to hang up, because she's somebody who does, who I need to answer the phone to if she calls me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
that probably something's wrong. Mm-hmm. So I answered the phone, and I was trying to keep it a little light, and all of a sudden, it was so weird, Brian. It was so weird. So all of a sudden, I get this tunnel vision, right? It was so weird. All of a sudden, I felt like I wasn't in my own space. Mm. I got this tunnel vision, and I see where she's sitting. I've never been in this house of hers because I haven't seen her in years. She's moved. And I'm sitting, I can see her sitting on her couch, and she has this pink hat, and it's this furry pink hat, and she's smelling it, and she keeps putting it up to her face. And I see her grandma, whom I've never met. And her grandma's telling me I died of cancer. And she's smelling my hat. That was the hat that I wore right before, when I died. That was my hat. And, and she's really sad. And she's just telling me, she's really grieving, and she needs to hear from me. And I don't even know. I don't think I registered what was happening. I went with it. As I said, I'm real free flowing. So it just happened,
Yeah.
And I'm I tell my friend, I say, I start explaining to her, hey, honey, I see you sitting on your couch. I don't even know how this wasn't a weird conversation, but it just wasn't. I started telling her about where she was sitting, and I said, do you have a pink hat that was from your grandma, and you keep smelling of it, and you're really missing her? Did she pass of cancer recently? And she just starts bawling, and she's like, oh my God, I'm having a hard time. And that's exactly, how do you know this? And I'm I don't know. I can just see it. And then I'm look, I have your grandma here. I'm she's telling me about a little figure in the room that you're in that keeps moving. It keeps moving and shifting, and it's freaking you out. I'm that's her moving it, And she started telling me very specific details about her life, conversations that she was having in the mirror to herself. Mm-hmm. A box that was put aside that had her daughter's things in it. She had her go to the box and open it and take out certain items. And all of them were accurate. They were there. It was a very long conversation. It was about an hour and a half. And I'm sitting in my tub, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm I felt fine. I was okay, it's all good. It's all good. And then I asked her grandma, did you want to stay with her? I'm going to get off the phone. Do you want to stay with her? Or are you leaving? Yeah. And she said, I'll stay with her. And I told her, your grandma's going to stay with you, but I'm going to go because I'm in the bath. Mm-hmm. And she felt comfort with that. She just felt so comforted. She said, oh my God, thank you so much. I can't, it was all this it brought her a lot of peace.
Yeah.
And so I bounced off the phone with her, right? And I had felt good up to this point. I felt fine, totally relaxed. I had like granny's energy, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm real calm. Until I realized I was back in my body and I was freezing. I was like, my bath water had gone cold. I've got goosebumps. I'm freezing. And I'm like, what in the hell just happened to me? And it scared me. It was so, I think some people would like that, but for me, that freaked me out. I was like, what in the hell happened to me? And I didn't like it. Like, it felt invasive. Like, it just felt not good. I don't know how to describe it. I got out and I was like, I had like a talking to with God, if you will. You know, I kind of said, like, what is happening to me? Like, what's happening? Yeah. And I got an answer. You don't want to get an answer when you ask. Yeah, really. You don't really want to get an answer. So I got an answer, and it actually came in the form of the woman in the committee, of the speaker. So I got an answer, and she took me back through what happened in the hospital and how they healed me and how I agreed. And it just put a calm over me. I was like, okay, all right, fine. If that's what it is, that's what it was. Like, it just completely calmed my nerves. Yeah. So that's the first like evidential type reading that I did. And then that just opened up a whole chain of events. That's like, it would take way too long for an interview, but I'm going to be putting it in my book. I think it's really important and special stuff. It was like the signs began to just flow. For me, I generally don't see for myself the same as I see for other people. So my mom coming to me in that type of situation was extremely unique. That was a rare occasion when it's really, really important, I think, that we see. That we're capable of seeing our people like in the same way. But if it's not excruciatingly important, then maybe we're like blocked from that for good reasons, so that we can still have this experience.
Still
like
function in this world.
Yeah. Well, so moving forward, I did go and get checked by like every doctor that I knew. I'm like, okay, time to see a psychologist, time to see a psychiatrist, time to go get my brain scanned. Well, even though everything had been confirmed over the phone by my friend, I still thought, you know, I had meningitis. Your brain is swollen, you know, when you have that, your spinal cord. And I thought, okay, it's time to get checked and see if anything's wrong. And I got a clean bill of health from everybody. And in fact, every time I sat with a doctor, their loved ones would come through and tell me things that I would never have known. And they were like, oh my God, this is incredible. I mean, like, you know, some of them would start talking to them. Like my doctor from the Middle East, whom I love very, very dearly. He's like, well, what do you see for me? You know, and I'm like, don't ask. Yeah. And then I went ahead and I told him what I saw, and he knew it was his dad, you know, and he went through his funeral that he wasn't at, and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Well, I know, you know, you and I met on Facebook, as I said, it's been several years ago. I'm guessing 3 or 4 at this point. It was after Shane had passed. You and I became friends.
Yeah.
And you volunteered to do a reading for me. It was very kind of you. So you did a reading for me, but you wouldn't let me record it. And I really wish you had, because it was.
I really wish I had to now.
I'm sorry?
I wish that I had let you too.
Yeah, I've had incredible readings by some of the literally the best mediums in the world, but you were just like, I mean, so when people, you know, when you say, you know, you're telling these stories and they sound, they sound wild. I mean, it's like, you know, you really like it. So you told me stuff that like nobody could possibly have looked at. You told me things that my wife thought at the hospital the day my daughter passed away, that my wife had never told anybody, including me. So I'm taking notes, and and then when she gets home, because she was away at the time, and I tell her this, and she goes, yeah, I had that thought at the hospital, but I've never told anybody. You told me something that happened with my wife the day before, some cake that she'd eaten. And then spontaneously.
The rainbow cake.
Yeah, the rainbow cake. Exactly. You remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, and I had a friend whose wife had passed away literally like the week before. So, and the reading was like, and it was like 2 hours long. And I'm just taking notes. And you tell me things that are in Shayna's bedroom and all this stuff. And I said, well, by the way, I have a friend whose wife passed away like a week ago. Can you tell me anything about that? And you knew how they had met at a camp, when they were young. You knew that she'd had the hip surgery she had had, or it was knee surgery. I can't remember which it was.
Yeah.
It was like 5 minutes. You told me all this stuff. And I called my friend up. I'm like, is any of this true? Because I have no idea. Because I didn't really even know his wife. And it was like spot on. So I tell people, I tell you that because most mediums, I'm going to guess, are like 60, maybe 70% accurate, a good medium. And you're like
That's
95, 100% accurate.
That's what I keep hearing. And then my friend Bob is like, don't ever say you're 100% accurate, because one time of you slipping up and somebody's going to like nail you to the cross. So I'm like, yeah, I don't claim that, but I'm accurate because it's not me. It's not me. It's like the credit doesn't belong to me. It's not, it takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of love. Like I love everyone I sit with. I love everybody like to a fault. Like it's gross. Like I feel their pain and it's like really, I have to pull myself back from them. So that's actually a problem for me. I don't think that it's a good thing as a medium. Are you there?
I'm here. Your video's frozen, but I can still hear your audio.
Okay, so my video froze.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll just keep going. It'll come back probably.
Let me look. Your connection is timed out. Let's see.
Oh.
Verify. Blah blah blah. Retry.
Okay,
try that.
Yep, we're back.
Oh, good.
We're back.
Okay.
So Carolyn is breaking
this
Zoom
is
again.
all the time. I'm breaking the computers again. Okay.
So what I was going to say, Carolyn, because you are, it's interesting. I interviewed Suzanne Giesman last week, and I was telling you this before we started. And Suzanne is an amazing, amazing medium, but she's a medium by training. She, after her stepdaughter passed, she started meditating, and she developed her talent. I'm not going to say it's a gift. She developed her talent. And she trains and all this stuff, and a lot of mediums that do that. And then there's some mediums that I call natural, like you and like Thomas John, where it just seems to be like it just flows through you. And can I just say thank you to Thomas John, because I think he kicked some people over for medical readings for me. So thanks, Tom. Yeah. Thomas. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I think it's really interesting to me, because people say, I want to learn to connect with my son or my daughter or whatever. And so some of us can train to do this, but for you, it seems to be spontaneous and natural. But does it take a physical toll on you when you do readings? Because I know you don't do a lot of readings. I think does it drain you? Oh my God. It's like, that is putting it lightly. Like people will ask me, like, do you do mentorships or whatever? Or, so many people are interested in going into this field, which I think is incredibly cool. I love how open people are becoming. And, it's obviously, it's good to know that more people are open to it now. Mm-hmm. But as far as actually doing it, I'm always like, man, tread carefully, because don't ask for what you don't want. I even tell people that with readings with me. I'm like, don't ask me if you don't want to hear. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It is so draining. And some people don't understand that. I think that's the one thing that's really tough for me as a medium, is that like most of the time I've been super blessed, because I'm all word of mouth. So all the people who come to me, I feel like have been brought to me by their loved ones, their spirit, and it's meant to be. But once in a while, I'll get somebody who's a little bit like, I don't know, like a little bit less understanding or less empathetic to my position. Mm-hmm. I am somebody who has chronic migraines. Like I had that prior to this. I could have gone on disability. Like I took 18 Imitrex a month before, and that's way too many. Like I was having, I don't know what they call it. I was having headaches because of my medicine. It was like rebound headaches there. Yeah. And that's why I couldn't tell with my meningitis whether it was a migraine or meningitis. Like that's how bad they get sometimes for me. Yeah. So that being said, I think it's very common for people who are naturally gifted to get migraines. I know that's a commonality, that people who are
empathetic people, or just in touch with other things, not even mediums.
Yeah.
Like they tend to get headaches, even from the planet, like from the pressure outside, from the barometric pressure or whatever. Like we're very sensitive to everything.
Yeah.
So when I give readings, yes, it can become very draining. It's a matter of learning how to separate yourself. And that's difficult. In the beginning, I had to learn to have empathy, which is weird because I'm a very sensitive person. Like I watch and I'll be crying. I'm like, my son laughs at me. It's like, oh my God, you're crying. And it's like a Disney movie. And I'm like, oh, I'm like soup, but it's like, when I would go into this mode with random run-in readings at my job before, okay, it was complete strangers. I don't know them. I didn't really have, like whatever. I didn't really have like an emotional connection to them. And, spirit would come through and be really pushy, and I had no boundaries. And I would just, like, there's somebody here. Do you want to hear? Like, I see stuff. Do you want to hear from them? And it was always a solid yes. Everybody always said yes. And I would take on the emotions of that person. Sometimes, like, I would get the symptoms, like if they died of, I remember one in the beginning, like he died of liver issues from being an alcoholic. And I felt like I was going to throw up. I had to go to the bathroom at work, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to puke. And then I just got like, I felt like I was having symptoms of liver failure. It's really creepy. So I had a really hard time to like disassociate, like to set boundaries for myself. Right. I'm way better at that now, way better, but it has taken me years to get good at that. And it was all self-work. It wasn't me opening a book or taking a class online or going to a school.
Right.
It was me talking to God. It was me talking to source. You know what I'm saying? It was me going straight to source and saying, what can I do? What do I need to do? And it's interesting because I started developing, I'd get answers, not through my ears. I would get answers in my mind, and I would do them, ritualistic type things. I would do them, and they helped. Later, to find out, once I started connecting more within the community, once I became more well-known, these are rituals that people teach and that they really, like, it's like everybody does.
Yeah.
So they must be legitimate. It's almost like I was getting confirmation as I went along, but I've still never read a book on mediumship or watched people's shows the whole way through. I've caught little glimpses of people's shows here and there. And then I get bored and I want to watch, because I do this, I live and breathe this. So I'm like, nah, I want to watch like true crime or like, like I want to watch something else,
Yeah.
It's really draining though. So
yeah, well, I think it's really, it's interesting how different people seem to do it differently. As I'm friends with a lot of mediums. I've talked to a lot of mediums and work with them in various capacities. So, for example, I have a friend who's a medium. This dude can do 15 readings a day, and I'm like, but I've talked to I've seen other mediums that say I can only do one reading a week. There are people that it just really takes everything out of them. So I think there's maybe different ways that people do it, and with someone like yourself, it just seems to. I kind of picture you as maybe like a battery, and so when you're doing this, you're like sending this energy out, making this connection. And then when it's over, you got to recharge.
Well, and some people charge you. You're right. Some spirits, some people, I call them people over there, and then it confuses people because they're the same to me. So it's like, whatever. Some spirits, when they come through, they're like, they charge me. Like they actually give me energy and make me happy. Like your daughter, she charges me. Like I love her. She's one of my favorite people in the world. I mean, that I've ever met in this world or that world. I just freaking adore her. Okay. So like she charges me like, but that probably falls in line with like who she was here. She's got this beautiful energy. She's like, she came through as this beautiful light, and she was sitting on my bed and she was just like ready to go. She's like, okay. You don't remember how we met, and I'll talk about that in a second because I do.
Yeah. Okay, good. That'd
but,
be great.
Because I'd like to, because it's a shout out to her and I love her. But yeah, somebody like her, she gives me energy, and she's like, she breathes love. She exhales love. And I don't know, just like this excitement for life. Like, I don't know. She is life. Do you understand what some
Oh,
people are
absolutely
just life?
understand. Yeah.
And and some people are less so that way, but she really is truly just, she's love and light. Like if people were to see her in the light that I see her in, or whomever is blessed enough to be able to meet her in that way, she's so shiny. Like she's just, her smile is radiant. Her eyes sparkle. She looks just like, I had never seen her in photo when I had met you over Facebook. So here's the thing. When I had met you over Facebook, we were friends on there. I don't remember why we were friends on there, but we were friends on there.
Mm-hmm.
We must have connected through somebody else. And I kept getting these like little updates or whatever on how many steps you had taken, like a Fitbit.
Yeah.
You know, and it kept showing up on my timeline. Well, I don't generally care about that. Not to be mean or anything. I
don't know why you would.
Okay. So like, I didn't really take notice of it. I was just like, damn, this guy's ambitious and I'm so lazy. Like I need to start walking. So I just started thinking, you know, I need to do more of this. I need to find my Fitbit. So I started taking notice of it because it started showing up more and more. And there's a lot of friends, I don't see any other stuff on there. And we didn't know each other. And I was seeing like every day how many steps you were taking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this went on for a while. And then one day I get this sense. Okay. So I didn't get her full on at this moment. I got a sense. I got like, she's pushing in on me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear in my mind, and she says, he's trying to catch up with me.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking to catch up with me.
Yeah.
And I said, wait, I'm like sitting here like, wait, who is that? You know what I mean? Cause like we weren't even connected.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading your Facebook steps and I'm like, oh shit, like I've got to say this, right? And I was like, no, I can't say this. Like, what if this person is not open to this? This is not fair for me to put on him. And I'm like, give me more. So I'm talking to whomever I'm hearing. Cause at the time I didn't know. I'm like, give me more. And then I see her. She comes into my vision. Okay. And I see her and I'm like, oh my God, I think this is his daughter. Like she's got to be his daughter or something. Like she's like, that's the sense that I got. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, he's walking to catch up with me. Tell him to wear the purple Converse, like the purple shoes. Okay. And I was like, I said back to her, how am I going to say this? And she goes, just say it. And she's so sparkly. And so I was like, fuck it. I'm doing it. I don't care. I love this girl. I'm like, I don't care. I'll just do it. Who cares if I look like a crazy nutcase? So I wrote, you know, for the first time on your thing, like, you know, and I wrote that and I got nothing. You didn't like it. You didn't love it. You didn't respond at all for 3 days. And I was like, oh shit, what if I'm wrong? Because, you know, when you don't get that confirmation once in a while, you're like, wait a minute, am I wrong?
Yeah.
So then I went to your page and I'm like, oh God, am I wrong? And there was nothing on your page about her that I could see. Nothing at the time. This is like, I don't know, like now I think I've seen stuff about her that pops up on my timeline, but at the time I couldn't view, there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I don't think I'm wrong because I obviously see her. I don't know why I'm seeing this. And a couple days later, you were like, you liked it. And I was like, oh, good. And then you were like, yes, I am, you know, and I'm like, and you said something, you acknowledged the purple shoes. And I was like, phew. I'm like, thank God. And that's how it sparked. You responded. And then I was like, thank you. I'm so sorry if that was invasive, but this is what I saw. And if you want to talk for a minute, feel free to call me and I'll communicate for you. And you were like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it was very like sporadic.
Yeah. No, I remember that now. You said I was walking to catch up with her. I'd forgotten about that part of it. But yeah, you know, it's
well, that's how
interesting.
she came through to me.
Yeah, it's interesting how people come into our life. And then I remember you and I had become friends, and I was on another board with this woman who's a professional skeptic, and she's a mutual friend of ours. And she's like, I don't believe in mediumship. I don't believe in it. But she's like, but I believe in investigating things. So I'm going to check it out. So she said, Brian, I know you know a lot of mediums. Tell me the best medium you know. And I'm going to go to that person and I'm going to prove that this is not real. And that was our friend.
That's
Kim.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a huge thing. my head's expanding. No, I'm just kidding. It's not.
Well,
Really
it's funny because Kim and I we're friends to this day, and I've actually had her on the program, and we've talked about you, and you just blew her away. I mean, she came back, she said there is no way that she could have looked any of this. I think she even gave you a fake name and stuff too. I think she went through all that stuff.
She did, that punk.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But yeah, it's
she told me later, she was like, she gave me a fake name, and then she had her boss come to me, and her boss gave me a fake name too. And it was so weird because I'm like, well, I mean, I can't get people's information out, but it's a weird story. And they're like, they're coming out, they're willing to come out with their stories in my book or whatever forum. And like really open up about details, because the readings that I gave them, because she's a debunker or whatever, like global issues, governmental issues, dude, I was like, who am I talking to here? You know what I mean? Well, her first reading was mostly just really personal, but
yeah,
when I read for her boss, it was like just worldly, global, like crazy stuff. And in fact, she came back later and said that I had predicted I had predicted a really big event that had happened and unfolded that she was connected to, and everybody knows about, and it's regarding sex trafficking and stuff and where these things were occurring. And I'm reluctant even to say that online as vague as I just said it, because like, it's just, it kind of scares me. It freaks me out.
I know that you also have worked with the police on cold cases and stuff like that, and you're an amazing medical intuitive. So in the few minutes we have left, maybe you can tell me something about your medical intuition. Maybe no personal details, but maybe give me an example.
Okay, so I'm a medical medium. I consider that different than a medical intuit. I used to consider myself a medical intuit, but I think that word and term is tossed around way too much.
Okay.
What I mean by that is people are out there claiming they're medical intuitives, and that might mean that they might get a little something medically, and it might be confirmed and it might not be. I work with 5 doctors in spirit on the other side. I don't see their faces. They're faceless. They stand behind me. I go into a medical reading completely different than I go into a spiritual reading. Okay. A spiritual reading, I go into it in front of me, medical in back, totally different process mentally. Okay. And they go through the person from their right hand, and they go up through their body, same path every time. And I don't know anything about a person's medical history going into it. Nothing at all. All of my readings right now, because of COVID, are done over the phone. And I work both internationally and nationally. And they take me through people's bodies, and they'll show me everything from deficiencies to issues that happened as a baby, when they were 13, when they were, throughout their life. So past, present, and future trauma is what I see. And we have found everything from cancer to leaking in certain vertebrae in the spine to, to septicemia with, bladder infections, to rejection of metal in somebody's spine. There's a book that a woman's writing. She's a client of mine, and she's writing a book about her experience with her daughter right now, or it's written. She told me that she had written me into it. And so that's public. But her daughter, I had seen go into surgery, and her back was open in the surgery. I'm seeing this through a reading with them. And I see her in the surgical room, and her back is open, and the doctors, it was supposed to be like, 3 to 5 hour surgery, and it ended up being like 8 hours. So they told me that the length of time it was versus what it was supposed to be. And I see the doctor standing there, and they've got it open, and one nicks something in her spine, and he's like, ooh, oops, and I'm like, what do you mean, oops? Right. And this extended the surgery. They nicked her spine. And when they closed her back up, she's had seizures and issues and stuff like that since then. It's just been like devastating to her life. And they had told me, through her reading, they had told me that she had a metal allergy. But I see all this metal in her spine. And I'm like, but then they tell me, well, it's titanium or whatever. It's like it's a non-allergic metal. But then they tell me that inside of the screws, there's nickel.
Yeah.
And it took her mother fighting, like going to doctor after doctor after doctor, surgeon after surgeon, you know what I mean? To try and get somebody to relook at this. She did get it tested, and she was allergic to the nickel, in fact, and she had to go back through and get these removed.
Yes, I know someone's extremely allergic to nickel, and yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, so they'll tell me very, very specific things. Now people will come to me like thinking, okay, well, you can save my life. Well, not really, because all the credit belongs to Spirit, of course. They have saved people's lives through the information that's come through, or prolonged it, prolonged it to a degree, or given somebody a better quality of life. But it's not, we're all going to go eventually, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
I would say we can't save anybody's lives. We can only prolong them.
And give them information that I can only tell people what I'm shown, and that's it. And nothing more, nothing less. So,
well, I know what you get, and I've heard some of your stories is extremely specific. It's like, write this down and take it to your doctor. It's not like, I see something like in the lower half of your right quadrant, that kind of a thing.
It's really specific. Like sometimes it takes me aback. Like there was a lady who I recently saw, and they're like, she needs to have these patches. They're showing me patches, and then they're talking about stem cells. And I didn't know they had stem cell patches that you can put on your body. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, some of it just seems so abstract to me that I can't understand. And I'll literally be like, do you have your computer? And they're like, yes. I'm like, turn it on. Put on Google. I want you to type this in there. Just please do this for me for validation. And I'll have people do homework for me while I'm like reading them, and they'll type something in and it'll come up, and we're both like, wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
So, and yes, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't claim to be. I don't have any education in it. Anything that comes through me comes through Spirit. Okay. To me, I always say, must be taken to a medical doctor and be validated through a medical doctor. Take everything, every single note, and let them say you're crazy. Who cares? Have it validated, and advocate for your own health, because doctors are going to laugh at you when you say that you spoke to me. But then, I've had people go in, a guy who had MS that I just adore. I love him so much. I knew there was something wrong with him medically, because it's kind of a cheat. I went to his house and he was in a wheelchair, so duh. Okay. Yeah. But I went there for a spiritual reading for him. And I wasn't intending to do any medical on him. And during his reading, his dad had come through, and his dad had MS too, he told me. But his dad didn't die of MS. He died of something else. And he had told me what. And then he brought me to his son, and he says, just tell him that he has a catheter in his spine, and it's off to the right. It's off to the left. And it was going into his muscles and his fat, and not into his spine. And it was medication. And it was giving him 80% worse pain in his legs. So he told his doc, I didn't know he had a catheter in his spine, because you can't see that. It was like inside.
Right.
And he confirmed that he has one, went into his doctor, his surgeon. He's like, please, my medium told me this. You need to check it. And they're laughing. They're kind of laughing it off, like, who?
Yeah.
He advocated 3 times. Just check it, please. She's on point all the time. They checked it, and it was accurate, of course.
Yeah.
And so then they fixed it, and his doctor said, you have one talented medium. Yeah. And that's all. That was like his little gesture of recognition. And once in a while I get that, and I'm like, it feels so good. It feels good just to get that,
you know by now that you're just incredible. As you said, spirit.
No, that the people who work with me are incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're an incredible channel, a vessel that they use. And so, as I said, I've worked with a lot of mediums. I've met a lot of mediums, and if you could convince Kim that you're legit, because like I said, she said, I'm going to prove that this is not real.
I just spoke with her yesterday.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
She came, this is the second time, actually the third time in 3 days she's come up, and I keep telling her, I'm like, man, your husband, he will work his way into, like, he wants to talk to her.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he ended up, yeah. And so I gave her a buzz last night because she came up in a reading last night, in fact. Too funny. And now she's coming up again.
Yeah.
And she loves it. She loves it. There's some investigating we have to do. We'll have to talk about it later. It's going to be really fun. Like the last time I gave her a reading, it went off into this crazy direction where they took me through her home. Oh my God, Brian. It's like, because I guess, you know, how people call it like remote viewing or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm like a remote viewer on crack because it's totally different for me. It's like I'm all up in their business and I can see everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they took me to her home, and I'm like going down in the basement, and they showed me this area, and it led to this entire, like they pulled me out of her home into the town that she's in.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to investigate that area now. So maybe we can share it another time, like her and I and you, because it's going to be a really fun story.
Oh, cool.
I mean,
we'll
it's really exciting. I'm going to investigate like all of this area that she's in, and then have her validate it, like look for the validation, because she's a debunker, so she can do it. I'm going to put her to work.
Exactly. Well, Carolyn,
You know?
I'm glad that we finally got to do this. It's been a long time coming. We were saying, I don't know if the gremlins are trying to stop us or the bad spirits or what the deal was, but between the scheduling issues and the technical issues, but we got it in, we got it done. So I appreciate you doing this.
Yes, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. I just adore both you and your wife and your family, and I think you're incredibly strong, and you're just a beacon of light in this world. I think that your videos are so inspiring, and more people should listen to you. And I don't do a lot of interviews. I'm asked to do a lot, and I'm honored to be to be interviewed by you. So
great. I'm glad that Shana came to you and you and I connected. So let me give your contact information. I know you're extremely busy, but Carolyn's website is thenextworldmedium.com, and you can contact Carolyn through there. I know your waiting list is pretty long, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'm booking into February right now.
Okay.
It's not crazy.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. It's not like years out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that would be pretty crazy. But I only do one reading a day because some of my readings get really long. Like you can see how long-winded I am. So obviously my readings.
You and I have had several multi-hour conversations. So I was wondering how we're going to do this in just an hour. But I'll have you back, definitely for sure.
Okay, awesome. I'd be honored.
Next time we'll talk politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
We'll wait till after the election. Well, Carolyn, it's been great seeing you. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for being so persistent and getting on.
Yes, thank you so much for being patient with me. And we only had one mishap with our computers, which was incredibly good.
Yeah,
for me.
Well, let's not push it. So we'll sign off.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you have a great night, Carolyn.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I want to make it really easy for you to reach me. So just send me a text to 31996 and simply text the word growth, GROWTH. In fact, you can right now just say, "Hey Siri," send a message to 31996, and when Siri asks you what you want to send, just say growth. You can do the same thing with OK Google. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to Grief to Growth. Brian hopes that you find this episode helpful and will come back for future episodes. Brian's best-selling book, Grief to Growth, Planted Not Buried, is a great resource for anyone who is coping with grief or knows someone who is. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to support it, there are 3 things you can do to help. The first is to share the podcast with someone that you think it will help. The second is to go to iTunes, rate, and review the episode. The third way you can support the podcast is by becoming a patron. Head over to www.patreon.com/grief2growth. That's patreon.com/grief, the number 2, growth, and sign up to make a small monthly donation. Patrons get access to exclusive bonus content and knowledge that you are helping to spread the message of grief to growth. For more about Brian and Grief to Growth, visit www.grieftogrowth.com.
Hi there. I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the podcast, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions came up for you? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? I invite you to visit us at grieftogrowth.circle.so. That's growth2growth.circle.so to continue the conversation with me and with other listeners. It's a space to sound off, to share reactions, and to go deeper into the topics from the show. I look forward to chatting more, and I hope to see you there.